Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz Memon.
Hi, this is Pooja from the Fan Garage, and you're listening to the Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz. As we recount some of the controversies that have hit the Indian Premier League, it's only befitting that we discuss the mother of them all, the big and very, very in-your-face Lalit versus Srini battle. Ayaz, before we can get to any of that, I think it's only fair that we recount for our listeners, how did Lalit Modi, the son of a big, rich industrialist, come into being the powers of cricket in the corridors of cricket?
Pooja, before we come to Lalit, I'm assuming that when you say Srini, you mean N. Srinivasan.
Yes, of course.
The informality may have a lot of people stumped. But obviously, Lalit Modi versus N. Srinivasan is one amongst the biggest stories, not just in cricket or Indian cricket, but in sport anywhere.
Yeah, and it shook up cricket globally,
It shook up cricket globally. So, I think, these are pivotal personalities in that conflict or in whatever happened in Indian cricket in the last 10-15 years. But Lalit Modi is a very key and very central figure, as we know, for the kind of role he played in the formation of the IPL, and then, of course, subsequently all the drama that had, surrounded him, and finally his, passage away from India, and now that he's ensconced somewhere in Europe, England, they say, but he could be touring wherever.
Absolutely, yes.
But what kind of a person was Lalit Modi? I think that's the crux of your question.
Yes.
I think that in my mind, he was a great impresario. He became one with the formation of the Indian Premier League. He was hugely ambitious. He wanted to do something in sport and certainly around cricket, because that's the mother of all sports in India. He came back from the US, kind of his sights trained on doing something in sport. You might remember that he became the youngest vice president of the BCCI.
Yes, of course.
He had money clout, obviously.
Yeah.
He had strong connections in the Rajasthan Cricket Association through business links and otherwise maybe through ancestral links. He also brought, as you know, ESPN into India.
Yes.
He was a pioneer in that sense of sports television coverage in India.
Right.
That arrangement didn't last long. But I think instead of kind of demoralizing him, it left him even hungrier to get involved in sport and in cricket particularly.
Yeah.
That's where he got into the BCCI, its politics, and I think he really came into his own in the period between, say, 2004 and 2007-8, which is when there was a whole, groundswell of movement against Jagmohan Dalmia, the then president, and, Sharad Pawar wanting to become the BCCI president for the first time. There's a whole kind of lobby which had built up against Jagmohan Dalmia, which included Sharad Pawar, of course, as the man chasing the hot seat,
right.
N. Srinivasan, Shashank Manohar, and obviously Lalit Modi. Lalit Modi was, in that sense, because he was so much younger than all of them, was seen as the major doer and, action man in this whole drama. And therefore, he got kind of into this groove of being, I won't use the word fixer pejoratively, but as a fixer. A person who could fix things in the BCCI for not just himself, but for the people he worked along with, or he was in cahoots with for that period of time.
Right.
Now that might change, as we know, the dynamics of BCCI politics are very, very fluid, and therefore those arrangements, the allegiances, they all changed over the period of time.
And as per convenience.
As
really.
per convenience.
Yes.
And as per what the situations warranted.
Demands at that time.
Demands, and also driven by a lot of self-interest.
For sure, yes.
Let's keep that in mind. So, Srinivasan and Lalit Modi, at one time thick as thieves, so to speak, very thick with each other,
yes,
working together, especially at the formation of the IPL,
correct,
suddenly fall out so badly that they become sworn and bitter enemies.
Right.
And how this drama pans out is amongst the most glorious or inglorious chapters that you might call it in the history of the BCCI. But I think we must take it in phases, his career. So becoming the vice president of the BCCI was a big step for him.
Back in 2005, yeah.
And he wanted to get into the power game of the BCCI, I think, to see his own vision through. I mentioned, I think, in an earlier program, when we were discussing Lalit briefly, as a digression, I mentioned that the proposal that he made for the IPL actually had a, similar proposal to what he had formulated in the year 1999-2000, if I remember correctly. T20 cricket hadn't come into being. It was about one-day cricket. It was a league, a global league, played along the lines of what the IPL was, but involving one-day cricket.
Right.
And because he had modeled it on the lines of,
American sport,
Super
which he
Bowl
was
and
otherwise,
NBA. So he had that game plan in mind.
Right.
He obviously understood marketing and sales better than all the other guys who were in the BCCI at that point in time.
Yes.
So he was very confident that he could make it lucrative. But he couldn't change the minds of the fuddy-duddy officials in the BCCI.
Right.
I think he got more traction when somebody like a Sharad Pawar came in and a Srinivasan became powerful. Because Sharad Pawar, though he was much older, also has a very savvy and a very contemporary mind where, scaling things up is concerned.
Yes.
As we've seen, including in his politics. But when he's been president of the Mumbai Cricket Association, or when he subsequently became president of the BCCI, we saw how he took the game, or at least made the game bigger.
Yeah.
A lot of
he understands the pulse of the people, of what ticks, of what works. Yes.
Correct. So too Srinivasan, who came from a very strong business background. I mean, he's the managing director of India Cement, so he knew what brands are, how to build up brands, how to influence, parts of how the growth of the game, which will bring in more revenue and stuff like that. So this was a very good coterie which formed, and there was a legal brain, Shashank Manohar, who also was very close to Sharad Pawar and therefore became close to Srinivasan and therefore also close to Lalit Modi. It's a different matter that they all fell out bitterly later in subsequent years.
Yes.
Otherwise, actually, originally his biggest friend was I.S. Bindra. And if you remember correctly, I mean, you might remember, not remember correctly, you might remember this, that when he lost in the Rajasthan Cricket Association elections, when, things started souring for him, he could still retain his place in the BCCI scheme of things because
he was associated with PCA, that's right.
Punjab Cricket Association supported him, which was Mr. Bindra.
Yes.
And even now, till,
he is part of the I Love Lalit Club, clearly.
He is part of the I Love Lalit Club. Very clearly.
Yes.
So, this is just kind of a background as to what Lalit Modi was and the kind of person he was. I think he was, he was very aggressive in his pursuit of, whatever he wanted to do. A lot of people might argue that it was very self-centered, but I think you also have to judge it by what he achieved. And also then, subsequently, by all the kind of things that went wrong.
Yes.
There's no black picture about him or a white picture. I think it's massive shades of grey in between as you study the Lalit Modi impression, the impact he's left on Indian cricket.
Yes, but even then, I mean, in a short span from 2005 in 2007 to go on to announce a new T20 league in India, 2008 we see the launch and birth of IPL in a revolutionary manner, auctions and this mega coming together of cricket and business and Bollywood and business and politicians. And where did it all start going wrong then? I mean, what happened that in 2010, he sort of went on a self-imposed exile, so to speak?
I think, look, he kick-started the IPL with support from the BCCI. I mean, he was not the president of the BCCI.
Yes.
But he took the lead. He was the impresario, as I mentioned. Yes, he conceptualized it.
Yeah, conceptualized it, and he was the commissioner appointed for a period of 5 years.
And he had the energy to see through the execution. When I look back, I don't think anybody else could have done it.
I agree
at
completely.
That point in time,
yes.
So he had the pizzazz, he had the energy, he had the vision, the breadth of vision to understand what would work in a rapidly changing India.
Right.
He borrowed ideas from the US, especially in the marketing of a league, which is fair enough.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with it.
Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with it. And remember, there was a sense of urgency then because the ICL had
already been
announced.
Yes.
So he had to do something to upstage the ICL. I mean, not just upstage, to overwhelm it.
Correct.
So that the IPL becomes the biggest sports property that there is.
Right.
So what happened was, because of the kind of person he is known to be, autocratic in his methods and his ways, which he has not shied away from to admitting.
Right.
But at that point in time, the BCCI officials were even willing to give him a long enough rope because there was nobody else who could do the kind of things that he was doing.
Right.
So he was, invested in with a lot of power. These powers were sweeping powers in the choice of teams, the kind of rules that would be made in consultation with other people. But seeing through this whole agenda of the IPL and, anybody has any issue or an objection or a suggestion or whatever, it would finally land up on Lalit Modi's desk.
Correct.
He had to address it.
I mean, he worked like a man possessed.
He was like a 24/7 man.
Absolutely.
He never slept.
Yes.
And just as an aside, you might remember that when he fell foul, one of the problems that he faced was paying a bill at the Four Seasons Hotel in Mumbai, where he had an office for 70, 80 days or 90 days.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, the BCCI said, where is the money? Who's going to pay for this?
Right, yeah.
But not in previous seasons when he had similar clout, but he was, their favorite boy.
Right.
So, I think somewhere the power also went to him because he perhaps felt he is the be-all and end-all of the league. And therefore, nobody should question him. And the people who had vested so much power in him suddenly started feeling powerless. And therefore, they said, hey, this is still the BCCI. This is our ship.
Yeah.
The IPL is a subset of the BCCI.
Right.
Though it's the flavor of the year or the season or for the next few seasons, and it's a cash cow.
Right.
And there was this little jockeying for power that had begun, I suspect, from the first year itself.
Okay.
It manifested itself far more dramatically in subsequent the years to come.
Yeah.
And then all kinds of issues that had been kind of buried or were below the surface started coming up.
Right.
And as we know that the biggest trigger was the two new teams that were added in season 2010.
Yes, the third season of IPL.
The third season of the IPL when Kochi and Pune teams came
were
into being.
announced as two new teams, yeah.
And there was a lobby within the BCCI which wanted Kochi. There was a lobby headed by Lalit Modi, or at least driven by Lalit Modi, which didn't want Kochi.
Right.
They wanted somebody else.
Yes.
Maybe a Gujarat or whoever else,
Right, yeah.
And because he felt himself so powerful and invincible and, somebody who kind of controls everything in the IPL. In a sense, he was also a control freak.
Yeah.
And because he had got his way for 3 seasons. And remember, his clout got enhanced in the second year when he took the IPL to South Africa in 2009. He against, the powers that be.
And
in
against
the government,
all odds.
Against all odds. And
3 odd weeks he staged the biggest event.
Made a huge success of it.
Yes.
So he became an even more powerful figure.
Correct.
And when the two new teams were added and there was, crossed wires within the BCCI and a tug of war happening there, he made I don't think it was an impulse. I think in his own mind it was well calculated.
I'm sure.
So he tweeted the ownership pattern of the Kochi team.
Right.
Which obviously then involved it involved
a lot of bigwigs.
And
yes.
Shashi Tharoor's name came in not as a owner, but somebody who he knew.
Correct.
Was a friend of his then.
Yes.
Was to be given a stake and stuff like that. And it became a massive controversy. It became not just a cricketing controversy, it became a political controversy.
Right.
And the biggest issue where the BCCI was concerned, and that's where they nailed him, so to speak, was that he had caused a breach of trust by revealing the ownership pattern in the public platform. That's not how the BCCI's or the IPL's rules were formed or
Well, yeah, it's
forged.
one thing to have rules, but, with any power circles, it's a cozy club. And no one sort of squeals on each other.
Correct. And the manner in which it was done, there's a sense of confidentiality.
Yeah.
There is a platform on which you will expose or you will reveal ownership patterns. Subsequently, all the franchises had to reveal their ownership patterns.
Right.
But
and we saw a lot of the other teams coming under the lens,
the lens. And a lot of them were actually forged by Lalit Modi himself.
Yes.
Or formed.
Right.
Whether he played a proactive role or not is a different matter. But some were friends, some were relatives, some places, the ownership
Well, he was
pattern.
clearly the master orchestrator behind...
So you could say that he wanted to get it off the ground, so he did what he could.
Right.
But when his power was threatened, when his hold and his grip on the IPL was threatened, because of the internecine politics in the BCCI, he took to social media to give vent to his, unhappiness. Perhaps it was a strategy which he thought might work in his favor.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Right.
It didn't, and it massively blew up in his face.
Right. Did he? I'm not sure if he saw what was coming next, but we'll take a quick short break over here, Ayaz. We'll be back in just a minute.
Rants, crazy conversations, absurd questions, and everything in between. Cyrus Says is the podcast where I, Cyrus Brocha, let loose and talk to interesting people from across different walks of life. People who are available actually, not more than that. Catch new episodes every Monday on iTunes, Audio Boom, or the all-new IVM Podcast app. Happy listening, but only for a few minutes.
Hi, this is Pooja here from the Fan Garage, and you're back listening to the Cricketwala Chronicles with Ayaz. Of course, we're talking about the biggest controversy to have hit Indian cricket and cricket in the world, Lalit Modi versus N. Srinivasan. But, we're talking about 2010, and Lalit, of course, revealing the ownership patterns and his Waterloo moment, so to speak. And where did that whole thing sort of take off from there? I mean, how it led to his ouster from India, Srinivasan coming to power. And then we see Srinivasan himself getting out, falling out.
Well, Srinivasan went out in 2014.
Yes.
Lalit's problems began in 2010,
right,
and just kept getting worse and worse. Of course, he wasn't here to kind of feel the heat directly. He was living overseas, but even so.
But it hasn't stopped him from being trigger happy and sort of going on.
He's also battling for clearing his own name, personal name. The other is for in some ways looking at a comeback route into Indian cricket, because he's just otherwise completely disconnected. He's been expelled from the BCCI.
Right.
But what happened, I think, is in 2010, sensing the fallout of that tweet, the political fallout as well as within the BCCI,
right,
the kind of pressures and problems that existed between members, especially in the in the highest authorities like the IPL chairman Srinivasan, who was to become subsequently the president of the BCCI,
right,
or Shashank Manohar, who was also to take over as the BCCI president the first time, not the second time.
Yes.
These all came out into the open,
right,
and Lalit Modi's friends became his enemies, so to speak.
Yeah.
So N. Srinivasan, who was seen to be or perceived to be very close to him, became one of his big enemies. So did Shashank Manohar. In fact, Shashank Manohar was the president when he had to leave the country.
Right.
And Srinivasan came in later.
Yes.
But by that time, Shashank Manohar and Srinivasan were on one side.
Right.
So, this is all a topsy-turvy situation in BCCI politics, but it keeps happening all the time.
Too many permutations to keep track of.
That's when Lalit Modi also decided that he must kind of reveal what all has been going on.
Right.
And that's where the murky politics and murky decision-making in the BCCI came out. For instance, N. Srinivasan being allowed to own a team in the IPL was a conflict of interest, as has been
widely reported, yes.
No, and then after a protracted controversy, which then sucked in even the Supreme Court.
Right.
Finally, it's been told that this was a conflict of interest. But however, that was all cleared by the managing committee of the BCCI.
To the point that the constitution of the BCCI was amended.
Correct.
Yes.
And just by he was then the treasurer, and Srinivasan, he said, I will vacate the room, you all take a decision.
Right.
And he came back and they said, yes, you can own a team.
Right.
Then, for instance, he revealed how, observers were changed to involve matches between India and some other country when he became the president. Or how Andrew Flintoff was,
that auction was sort of rigged, so to speak, so N. Srinivasan could buy him for CSK. Yes,
so as a man in power, how he was fiddling around or exploiting his power nefariously is what Lalit Modi wanted to show. But I think what happened in this whole drama, which was spread over 3-4 years, is it showed not just bickering, but the power play at work for personal interests and personal gains. Whether it was for money or just for the sake of power is it depends from situation to situation.
Yeah.
But it showed how the BCCI, in fact, while it's a very well-run sports body even now, was within its own composition still not forged together well enough or strong enough to stand scrutiny. So let me give you an example. When you had the IPL, you had the governing council.
Yeah.
The governing council was made up of the Cozy Club.
Right.
Which included the president, and then it included the treasurer, and it included the secretary, and 2-3 vice presidents.
And no player representative.
No player representative, no franchise representative.
Right.
They, in the original scheme of things, they incorporated 3 famous names from Indian cricket.
Yeah.
Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi, Sunil Gavaskar and Ravi Shastri. To keep at bay more questions being asked about them.
Right.
But frankly, none of these players, and they were getting paid. This was not an honorary job.
Yes.
They were being paid 1 crore or 2 crore of rupees every year.
Yeah.
When issues came up, when controversies came up, they had very little to contribute because they were in there as faces and fronts to show that the IPL is all about cricket and these guys are there. They may have had major inputs to put where, the technical aspects of the game or the tournament are concerned.
They would have had a part to play, but surely it was a eyewash, so to speak.
Yeah, but when it came down, and therefore, the point is that the governing council had no checks and balances within itself.
Yeah.
It was just a, yo-yo, ye club where they looked at things, how, if there's a controversy, let's circumvent it or let's sandpaper it.
Right.
And then get on ahead. And that's how it worked till 2010, it just kind of blew up in their faces. And then you found out that Pataudi, who was still alive then, backed off.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to make this job honorary, which was not what it was for him originally.
Correct.
And I think he had also sensed that, frankly, as players, they were offering nothing to the league in terms of being part of the governing council. Sunil Gavaskar is still fighting a thing about that he's not been paid money.
Right.
When he was told that he would be paid money.
Correct.
Even if it was informal.
Right.
Shastri was the only one who continued.
Yeah.
When he was paid and when he was not paid.
Right.
The formation of the governing council is a telltale story of how it was not robust at all. The IPL's, how do I put it, the foundation,
right.
In terms of running the tournament. It's not in the success of the tournament, but if there were issues, how do you address it? And therefore, it worked on the first couple of years, it worked on the charisma of a Lalit Modi and his brash and brazen ways, which everybody admired. Yeah. You either hated him or you loved him, but you couldn't ignore him.
Right.
And obviously, the political maneuvering of the finesse of a Sharad Pawar or a Shashank Manohar or an N. Srinivasan and Manohar more particularly because they were old hand at BCCI politics.
Yes.
But when the friction became amongst themselves, then everything started to fall apart ingloriously and rapidly.
Yeah.
And therefore you had, Lalit Modi sitting in the UK or somewhere else and kind of firing bullets at...
Tweet after tweet,
which are like bullets aimed at BCCI officials or including some politicians in India.
Yes, absolutely.
Because remember, politicians were also part of the governing council and the BCCI.
Yeah.
Arun Jaitley was the vice president of the BCCI.
Yeah, I mean, reading Lalit Modi's Twitter timeline is like the biggest entertaining book, if I may say. I mean, he claims to have kept a record of every free ticket and seat that he's...
Which he may have.
Yes, of course.
So he took on politicians, he took on media people, he took on players, he took on obviously the board officials who were ranged against him.
Yes.
He supported Aditya Varma of the Bihar Cricket Association, which was also banned in fighting Srinivasan, and he fought for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and has confessedly sort of funded that legal battle.
But the Srinivasan Lalit Modi battle became even more and more bitter as time went by, because I think somewhere even Lalit Modi sensed after Srini had become president that he's very different from everybody else. He could be diabolical enough to kind of eliminate me completely from the board politics or from the BCCI or from Indian cricket. So his responses or his attacks also became sharper, more frequent, and it became into a tutu meme, which at one stage Srinivasan took the position, I don't want to respond to people who have fled the country or against whom there is an enforcement directed notice.
Who are fugitives.
Or fugitives.
Yes.
Except, unfortunately for Srinivasan, in 2013, the spot fixing scam broke, which involved his team, his son-in-law.
Yes.
And frankly, then there was no room to run, and it just emboldened and empowered Lalit Modi even further.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
And I think Srini tried to fight it tooth and nail through legal technicalities, legal remedies which he could gather, but it all went in vain, to cut a long story short.
Yeah.
And it made Lalit Modi, even in absentia, a more potent force and a more relevant kind of
Well, clearly it was the fuel that he needed to keep this fire burning, right?
Yes, but what he kept saying added to the understanding of how deep-rooted the issues or the problems had become.
Yes.
Suppose Lalit Modi had just kept quiet. Srinivasan may have fallen...
We wouldn't have got, and for that matter, the Supreme Court wouldn't have got so many insights.
Much insight. Exactly my point.
That's true. Yes.
Now, as the situation stands today, I don't think it has helped Lalit Modi terribly to come back into Indian cricket. He still remains, away from the country.
Yes.
There is red corner notice or a blue corner notice or whatever, against him.
Yes.
In violations of foreign
FEMA
exchange,
and ED
FEMA
yes.
and whatever, so
That's
many
right.
other cases. He
Yeah.
says these are all manufactured and doctored. However, they are there.
Yeah.
It's the government of India versus him.
Right.
What he did succeed in was virtually scuttling N. Srinivasan's career as a cricket administrator in India.
Correct.
I mean, we all know that anything and everything is possible in Indian cricket. He might come back, but at least, he brought him down. He just destroyed the edifice that Srinivasan was sitting on by his attacks, but not because he had done anything, but it just, the fire started in Srinivasan's backyard itself with his son-in-law, being involved in the spot fixing thing, or allegedly involved.
Yes.
So the good part, I think, that has happened since is that it got the Supreme Court involved. It has got them involved to the extent that they had two committees sit in, the Mudgal committee and then now the Lodha Justice R.M. Lodha committee, which has come up, examined all kinds of issues threadbare, from corruption to
governance, administration, everything. Yes.
How does power devolve in the BCCI? What are the tenures of the terms? Who all are there? How many associations? And stuff like that.
Right.
And in the attempt to get complete transparency, what the Lodha committee panel recommendations which are there. So one of the things which has happened is that the BCCI now cannot take the position that we are a private body and whatever we do is nobody else's concern.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that idea has long been thrown out of the window.
Well, and decisively. I think the Supreme Court has made sure that cannot be held as an argument any longer. It may be a legal, technical argument, but not in public perception.
Right.
Which is why the BCCI has found no support from the people.
Yes.
The other is looking for transparency, sweeping reforms. I mean, it's already claimed one casualty. Shashank Manohar has quit and become ICC chairman.
Right.
He's saying, I can't do what the Supreme Court wants me to do.
Yes.
The new president, Anurag Thakur, says it can be done to the extent. I think what he's saying is that maybe I can convince the Supreme Court. There are certain issues that, in the quest for transparency may not be possible to do.
Yeah.
At least from the BCCI's point of view, like ads between overs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that apart, I think what has happened is that how the BCCI is structured, how the governing council of the IPL will be in subsequent years.
Yeah.
What will be the onus on people who hold positions of power, whether it's secretary, treasurer,
or now CEO, as we
or
have
CEO,
seen, yes.
are now getting better defined rather than being camouflaged in secrecy.
Right.
It's not, you can't put layers and layers of stuff which people can't penetrate.
Right.
It has to be out in the open. The BCCI is already now saying that whatever we do will be on the website.
Up on our website.
Up on our website, transactions, financial transactions, which association is getting how much. All of this is rooted in the controversy between Lalit Modi and the bit of fight between Modi and Srinivasan. These are all offshoots of that.
Correct.
And therefore, I think going ahead, if one has to look at the positive aspect of it, the negative aspect is it really brought down the entire establishment.
Right.
And it exposed it for the shallowness and hollowness with which it was functioning.
Yeah, but at the positive, it was a cleansing of sorts, which was much needed. Clearly.
Willy-nilly, it has become a cleansing issue.
Yeah.
It was a precipitating factor in the BCCI or Indian cricket getting to be cleansed. And I think that's very important going ahead. For instance, one of the Lodha committee recommendations is that there should be a players' association.
Right.
The players seem to have no say.
Yeah.
In the case of Indian cricket, because Indian cricket is so flush with money, and the top 50, 60 cricketers get a lot of money, they have no complaints. It doesn't mean that there are no complaints in, or player concerns.
Correct.
Now, because of this, which neither Srinivasan nor Lalit Modi nor Shashank Manohar, frankly, and some of the senior players, none of them advocated. They didn't want it. They wanted player power to be used as faces to mollify people or let people perceive that we're doing things which are in good, in good faith and good taste, to have a Gavaskar or a Pataudi or a Shastri as the face.
Right.
But now the Supreme Court is saying no. There must be a players' association and a representation on the BCCI perhaps.
Right.
To make sure that the interests of the lowest players are looked after.
Yes.
Earlier the BCCI's position was we'll look after, nobody's there to tell us, or nobody should tell us what is to be done.
And nobody should question us.
So these are issues. Then how the IPL players auction will take place, including now what has happened is that because of this RM Lodha, Justice Lodha panel recommendation, even the coach for the Indian team now, the BCCI has put out an ad.
Right.
Saying those who want to apply,
please do.
And, please do. And there's obviously the June 10th deadline, and then they will choose.
Yes.
It's a formal process. In the past, they've had multiple candidates who they've interviewed, but not formalized like this.
And not publicly.
Not publicly formalized.
Yes.
They would call people interested, or people interested call them up and said,
Yes.
why don't you try us?
Yes.
Or it would be an ad hoc appointment, like it was with Ravi Shastri.
Right.
He
was made the team director.
Team
yeah.
director.
Yes.
Now, you've got a situation where, players are applying. It's a little unusual in Indian cricket, and I still maintain that apart from Ravi Shastri and maybe Sandeep Patil, who's also applied, the marquee names, I think, will be a little coy. So I don't know if Rahul Dravid will apply, or a Saurav Ganguly, or Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah.
Because, for them, it's like coming down a peg or two.
Yeah.
In their own esteem or the esteem of their fans.
Yeah.
But from a process point of view, this may not be a bad thing to do.
Right.
Like for the post of the CEO,
Yeah.
they invited applications, and now they've got a CEO in place.
Yes.
Amongst looking at 5-6 applicants, whatever it might have been.
Correct.
The point is that this has been a turmoil-ridden, highly surcharged 8-10 years in Indian cricket. Say starting from 2005-06 when Dalmia was ousted as the BCCI president, and Sharad Pawar came in.
Yes.
And Indian cricket post IPL became richer by maybe 1,000 crore per year.
Yeah.
And that's where the power stakes and the stakes of these people became even greater.
Yeah.
Whether it's about pocketing the money or getting cuts is not the issue. It's just about being involved in the power.
And being in control.
Being in control.
Yes.
And running the show became an end in itself. Even that, now, I think, maybe it was a catharsis that had to be gone through.
Yeah.
And something had to give. And that happened with the spot fixing scam, and therefore it all came out in public scrutiny in all its ugliness.
Yeah.
So that has happened. Now going ahead, I think, perhaps the structure of Indian cricket, the establishment, is going to become cleaner, more transparent, hopefully, and obviously even better run. And all of this, actually, you can locate it in many ways into the scrap that happened between Lalit Modi and Srinivasan. Not just them, but they became the two strongest and the biggest figures.
It was the biggest milestone in the story of Indian cricket,
And this whole jhagda that happened between Manohar and Srinivasan and Lalit Modi and Sharad Pawar always looming in the background somewhere, or I.S. Bindra or Jagmohan Dalmia, who everybody ousted in 2005 and everybody voted to bring him back in 2014 as a consensus candidate. A very sick Jagmohan Dalmia.
Convenient power struggles, yes.
Yeah. But all that has now, I think, kind of, been papered out. People have become wiser. The media has become more inquiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't escape scrutiny and attention, and therefore the best recourse is to set your house in order.
Absolutely, there's no denying that. But of course, the biggest questions remain: will N. Srinivasan ever come back into Indian cricket administration?
Or Lalit Modi back to India and Indian cricket?
Absolutely. I mean, two questions which everyone wants to know.
Multi-million-dollar questions, Pooja, for which I have no answer. But as the popular title of, I think it's an Anupam Kher play which goes, na, kuch bhi ho sakta hai.
Thank you for chatting here with me, Ayaz, on Cricket Wala Chronicles. We'll continue this conversation and gupshup in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
Signing out. Cricket Wala Chronicles is available on iTunes, Audio Boom, YouTube, the IVM Podcast app, and many other podcasting apps that you may like.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcast, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.